you can get through it. It's super hard when you're in the thick of it, in the muck, and it seems like you're moving at a snail's pace sometimes and can get very frustrated easily about the situation and about the partner that you're separating from. And just want to give some courage to people who are going through that situation to recognize that they've got a lot of power within them to keep themselves going, keep themselves motivated, understanding that there is light at the end of the tunnel once they get through it all. I'm still getting through it, so I haven't fully seen the light. I'm still reaching for it and searching for it and trying to find that love for myself in order to bring in some new love into my life. She came down and said, "Hey, I want a divorce," and it was the first time that I've ever really experienced what depression would be like. I've always been a super positive person and really aware of my thoughts and how to recognize when I'm having like sad or down thoughts and like focus on the antithesis of that and then pull myself up out of that spiral. I've been great at that since a young child. This was the first time in my life that I truly felt depressed and just didn't really want to do anything.
Welcome to the Derelict Podcast. For the disparaged, depleted, and delinquent souls trying to find our way, we're talking about the scary part of the journey, where we don't know how it'll end. Let's be free to face our fucking failures in real time as the most unadulterated, truest version of who we are. No sugarcoating. Welcome to the shit show, you derelict.
Hey y'all, Josh Tomioni with the Derelict Podcast. Welcome back. We're so glad you're here. Would you do me a favor? It will only take you a couple seconds. Whether you're listening or watching right now, will you head on over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button? It really helps us get this message to more and more people that we can help. Greatly appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for being here and enjoy the episode. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Derelict Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Tomioni, and we have a very special guest here today, Robbie G. And we're going to talk a little bit about him. But before we do, I want to tell you about this man. He is an entrepreneur. He is a business owner. He helps coach people. He is a musician. He has shared the stage with a lot of amazing artists. I read you sent to me that you were on stage or in collaboration with Snoop Dogg and Wu-Tang Clan and a few others, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I love that so much. Also, your story, was not one of just instant success, right? It sounds like you've been in the music industry for more than a decade. You've had some struggles growing up. You went behind bars even at one point. Maybe we'll hear that story also. And more specifically, for the people that are listening to this podcast right now as a teaser, we often talk on this podcast about dealing with failures, dealing with struggles real time. And with a lot of what we've been talking about lately, and that is going through relationship transitions, especially big ones like divorce. A lot of the times you're hearing from people that went through a divorce 20 years ago and you're like, okay, that's great, but how does that apply to me now? Well, we have a gentleman that just went through a divorce. It's fresh. It's very fresh within the last year. So looking forward to hearing his story. We're going to talk a little bit more about how he's keeping his head above water and everything else in the meantime. So in the meantime, welcome, Robbie, man. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you. But what sort of message do you want to give to the men and women that are listening to this podcast?
I would say that the message overall is just that you can get through it. It's super hard when you're in the thick of it and like in the nitty gritty and in the muck, and it seems like you're moving at a snail's pace sometimes and can get very frustrated easily about the situation and about the partner that you're separating from. And just want to give some courage to people who are going through that situation to recognize that, they've got a lot of power within them to keep themselves going, keep themselves motivated. Understanding that there is light at the end of the tunnel once they get through it all. I'm still getting through it, so I haven't fully seen the light, I think. I'm still, reaching for it and searching for it and trying to find, that love for myself in order to bring in some new love into my life. So yeah, it's been a challenge, but I do want people to know that it's, a natural occurrence that can happen. When it happened to me at first, I definitely didn't want it to happen. Obviously, you go into marriage wanting to be with that person for the rest of your life. And, it just got to the point where we weren't aligning on many different things. And now I've just come to the acceptance factor of, this is a part of my journey, and, it's probably going to be for the best in the long run. as opposed to trying to gruel it out with somebody who we weren't actually aligned with. So yeah, there's a lot of times where you can be beating yourself up and being like, what could I have done? And many times even still where I think back and say like, if I had done this differently or that differently, would we still be together? And would we be able to have a happy, healthy relationship? And, I think it's really important to just recognize that things flow as the way that they're supposed to. Things are meant to be, and to just have acceptance for it all, and to have love for yourself through the process, and recognize that, you can feel better tomorrow, and, just try and stay positive about the situation, and know that other people are going through it too, and try and offer them some advice through this conversation to help uplift them and put them in a good mind space.
You said a lot of really good things there. So I want to back up to a few of them. I appreciate you sharing that. So I think the first thing that I want to go to, Robbie, maybe you could expand on a little bit, is you were talking about just that realization that you went through, that it was over. I mean, you shared with me a little bit before we started recording that it sounded like maybe she initiated the process, and then you tried to get back together, and then you initiated the process, and it was kind of this back and forth a little bit. Can you, maybe for the people that are listening or watching right now that are either considering pulling the trigger and making that move, they're considering a divorce, they're considering maybe it's even just a relationship, a partnership, etc., that they're thinking about ending, what would you say to them as far as how did you get clarity on, wow, this really is over? Like what was that process like for you?
I mean, at first it was denial for me, because she came into the kitchen one day and just said, I think I want a divorce. And it kind of took me by surprise. Obviously we were having, disagreements and arguments that led up to that point. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. And then all of a sudden she's like, hey, we're going to divorce now. We were definitely struggling with some communication issues. And, she came down and said, hey, I want a divorce, and it smacked me in the face. And I was just like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, why? There's nothing we can do here. And she just became this like stone cold person for a while, where basically she didn't want to show any emotion, didn't want to let me in at all. And I remember early times like trying to communicate with her about it and like visibly showing a lot of emotion myself. And she was just like, nope, don't want to talk about it. Don't care. I've made my decision. I'm moving on. And then
Did that happen? Sorry, did that start happening before she initiated the divorce, or you mean after?
After. Yeah. I mean, okay. Still open in communication. And then when she kind of made her decision, she just turned into this kind of like different person in a sense, and just closed herself off completely. Didn't want to show any emotion, didn't want to go down that rabbit hole, I guess. And then she removed herself from our home. She basically booked a trip down south to like Mexico and a few places, and took off for 6 months. She's like, I'm gonna go, I need to like find myself, and left me in the house alone, contemplating like, what did I do wrong? How did this happen? So yeah, it put me in a really big, deep, dark spiral. And it was the first time that I've ever really experienced what I guess depression would be like. I've always been very much like, in my mind, a super positive person, and really aware of my thoughts and how to recognize when I'm having like sad or down thoughts, and like focus on the antithesis of that, and then pull myself up out of that spiral. I've been great at that since a young child, like reading books and learning about just how our mental controls everything in our world, and recognizing that thoughts beget thoughts. So when you have one thought, your brain will instantly, it's how our neural nets are like built. It'll search for another thought that's similar to that one and connect the two. And if you keep going down that chain, it'll put you into a depression. But this was the first time in my life that I truly felt depressed, I would say, and just didn't really want to do anything. And I had to run my business. I run a promotions company. So we book artists all across the country and put on about, 200-300 shows a year. So I'm still trying to maintain my business, maintain my artistry, maintain my relationships with my fans, and then deal with this like heavy weight and heavy burden that I also didn't really want to talk with anybody anybody about. I wasn't like sharing this information publicly. You know, my close family members and friends knew, and I had a couple of people to talk to, but I didn't have a therapist or anything like that. I was basically just wallowing in my own self-pity, and it was a hard time for me for sure. And I went through that for about 3 months until we reconnected and chatted over the phone while she was away. And she, I guess, had a change of heart, and she was like, hey, like, I would love for you to come down and see me and spend some time with me. So I was like, when? Like, I'll book the flight tomorrow. Like, let's go. So we figured out a time in her schedule, and I flew down to Mexico to spend like a week and a half with her. And yeah, it was a great time, but we were definitely falling back into our negative patterns and just, you know, not really knowing how to communicate properly. So as I left, we kind of left it as like, we're going to give this another go. Wait until you come back home in the summertime and we'll see what we can do. And we went to like marriage counseling and tried to speak with a therapist and get us both on the same page. And we did both show up really, you know, with our full selves to have those conversations and to try to see if we can make it work. And I don't think it was either on one of us to be like, you didn't try enough or I didn't try enough. We both really gave it a good shot, I think. And there was a lot of love in just trying to see if we could make it work. So I commend her and, you know, give myself a little pat on the back for at least giving that a go. You know what I mean? And then it turned out after spending, you know, another 6 months or so together after the summer into the fall, we were still just kind of like butting heads a little bit. And then eventually January of this year is when I decided to divorce and said, you know, I think it's going to be best if we both go our separate ways, because we're just, and it was at a time when we were both doing pretty good together, but I just felt like there was some things that weren't aligning. Just like, I don't know, it was some clarity and realizations that I was going through at the time that allowed me to say, hey, you know what, this is not going to work out anymore. And I think she was, you know, somewhat abrasive to it at first, but then eventually receptive. And, you know, we've had conversations about it a little bit, and we still, you know, co-parent and chat a little bit. It's not the greatest, you know what I mean? Sometimes communication breakdowns can happen. But yeah, I mean, we're both, I think, in a better place. But yeah,
that's good. That's good.
So
first of all, man, that's tough. And I've been there myself. I've gone through the process myself. You know, I coach a lot of men going through this process, and everyone watching and listening right now would say that to you. That's just a difficult situation. It's even in a place where you can find out how to make it work and collaborate and co-parent effectively and that sort of thing. It's just, I've never talked to anybody that's been through an easy divorce process. It's just tough.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry that you had to go.
It'd be kind of strange if it was just like, oh yeah, it was super easy. We just like,
you'd wonder if anyone was even connected in the first place, right? Because if you actually care and love somebody, it's going to be difficult because you're removing somebody from your life that you love and care about. And going back to that part of your story, I just was curious if you could expand on that a little bit more. So again, for people that are watching or listening, you know, you said you came to this point where you just realized it's done. You just realized you had some clarity around that. What would you say to people that haven't received that clarity yet and they're trying to look for it? Like, how do you find it? What should they be open to experiencing from your experience?
I would say for me, I'm really spiritual, and I'm just like always listening to the signs. So there's just some, I don't know if you call them red flags or just situations that happen where you're in a conversation with somebody and they react in a certain way or say something, and your brain just kind of goes, that's not right. That's not the way I should be treated. That doesn't feel like love in a sense, you know what I mean? And then just some other situations will happen where you're like, this is a sign, there's something going on here. And I remember distinctly, there was this healer that I met at an event that I was at in Vernon, and I hadn't told her anything about my situation. Like, she didn't know if I even had a relationship or what anything about my life. And she's like, can I do a reading for you real quick? And I was like, yeah, sure. And she just like put her fingers on the back of my neck and she's just like, looked me in the eyes. She's like, the person that you're with does not support you. And like my whole body just like tingles from head to toe. And like, it was like a message from the divine almost, that it was just like, I knew that inside, but having somebody else confirm it, especially somebody who had no idea about my romantic situation or anything about what I was going through or anything about how my partner had asked for a divorce and we tried to make it work and this and that. She just literally looked me in the eyes and she was just like, the person that you're with does not support you or does not fully support you or something along those lines. And I was like, wow, like I started really breaking that down in my head. Like, what does that mean? And what are the signs of it? And started noticing them. And although she did support me in certain ways, there was definitely something going on in our dynamic that made me feel like she wasn't really there for me. And ultimately, I don't think really wanted the best for me. I think there's parts of her that did, but there was other parts of her that didn't. And I mean, that can come from her own journey of what she's going through and discovering, and her own love for herself and her own ability to break through her own fears. And I don't want to talk too much about like her because I feel like that's her own story and I don't want to like be judgmental or anything. So I would just leave it as saying like, yeah, I made some realizations that I don't think she truly was supporting me. And that made me question the validity of our relationship and if it really was able to go the distance. And I feel like we did have some conversations about it. And I just didn't get what I felt like I needed. And
and you know, and immaterial to her, like she could have felt that she was very supportive of you, right? But frankly, it doesn't really matter. Like if you're not experiencing that and you're not in a place where you're experiencing the support and the encouragement and what you want out of life, then you can have a conversation about it. You can try to get to that point. And then at some point, if you can't get there and you're not getting what you need, you're not getting the encouragement, the support, the love, the care, the everything else that you're wanting out of your life, at some point you have to make that tough call, right? Where it's like, well, I'm not getting this. We've had multiple conversations about it. I'm trying my best because all I can do is control myself. You know, one thing that's given me a lot of peace over the years, Robbie, is just the fact that everyone is on their own healing journey, including people that are not healing. So even somebody that is going downhill into addiction or just bad decisions or whatever they're going down, they're still on a healing journey. They're just going down, right? So everybody's on their own healing journey. And one thing that's given me a lot of peace is that I've spent a lot of time, especially when I started going through my own healing journey, I spent a lot of time expecting and kind of pushing everybody else to be healing the way I was healing. Mm-hmm. And that's just an expectation and a recipe for disaster because everyone's on their own healing journey and they're all healing at different paces and everything else. Now, what I'm not saying is don't try to help them. That's not what I'm saying. If somebody's open to help, great. We can help each other on our own healing journey. But I think the thing that I'm trying to say that has brought me a lot of peace is just realizing everybody's on their own healing journey and there's nothing I can do about it. All I can do is focus on my own healing journey, try to keep my side of the street clean, make amends when I need to, apologize when I need to, change course when I need to, and make sure that I'm doing everything that I can to be the man that I want to be. And it sounds like you got to that point as well, where you're thinking, okay, these are the things I want. Here's where I want to be. And she didn't align to that. And, you know, I think at least for me and a lot of people I'm sure listening, it's really hard to know when that point is, right? Like there's not some gun that goes up in the air. They're like, okay, now it is, like now just break up, right? Like there's nothing there. And some people have an experience like you. I think that experience is beautiful with that spiritual healer that actually just was presently there with you. But, you know, I don't think you needed that spiritual healer, frankly. I think you already knew it. And that was just, like you said, the divine's way of putting that in your body enough to where you could accept it?
I guess feel the confidence to move forward, making the decision, because it's such a tough decision, and it would have been so much easier to stay comfortable in the situation instead of being uncomfortable and then going through. Like, divorce is not a fun thing to go through. And, you know, if I could say anything about divorce on this podcast, it would be, you know, to do everything that you can, exhaust all options to try to make it work with the partner that you've chosen to be with, because it sucks. It really does suck to have to go through the whole financial rigmarole, to, you know, deal with the separation, to feel that loneliness and emptiness in your heart after it's all said and done. You know, like I said, you do get to the light on the other side and you feel better about it after, but going through it is not a fun process and it's not easy to do. So if you can make it work, try to make it work. You can't, you know, what's the saying, fit a square peg in a round hole or something like that. If it's really not working out, you gotta move on and stop trying to force it. But if you can do anything to try and make it happen, there's tons of resources, and, you know, trying marriage counseling and, you know, getting in a place where you can have good communication with your partner, I think is key for any relationship, but especially marriage. Like, you want to, when you get married to somebody, you want to be able to stay with them forever until the day that you die. Like, that's the vow.
For sure. You know, I earlier this year, I wrote an ebook, and it's about the 5 common traps men face when going through divorce. Now, you would think with a title like that, it would all be about, you know, once the process is started. But trap number 1 actually is not triggering the divorce too soon. And in that, I have a list of questions to make sure that you are connecting with your spouse in a way that you are, like you said, exhausting all options, which again, doesn't necessarily make sense with the title, but it does, because the reason why is that some people will be at number 1 and they haven't asked those questions, or they haven't done the tough things. They haven't gotten a therapist. They haven't gotten a coach like me. They haven't worked with somebody, a mediator, etc. Somebody that can actually come together and try to help them see what are their limiting patterns, what are their limiting beliefs, what are the things that are actually blocking them from true connection? Because maybe they really are connected and there's just some things that are blocking them from that. And I think the beautiful thing to what you're talking about, Robbie, as well, is that whether it ends in divorce or not, again, if you're on a healing journey, it's for the best. You know, for me, I didn't think that divorce was a good thing, but it ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. For you, divorce, you didn't want to do it, but it's going to prove to be good, it looks like, with just the healing journey you're on and that sort of thing. So I'm not saying it's good or bad to get divorced. What I'm saying is, if you made that commitment and you're married and you want to stick together, you better be damn sure that you go through every single option to make sure that that works on your end, because you can't control the other person. On your end, you better be damn sure you've gone through every single effort, because if you haven't, what I hear so often from men that I coach is regret. I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done the therapy. I wish I would have done the coaching. I wish that I would have talked to that mediator. I wish that I, you know, fill in the blank. And the men that are free after the divorce are the men that can honestly look you in the eye and say, I did everything that I possibly could at that time in my life. I exhausted all the resources, and this still occurred. Because at that point, okay, so it occurred, right? There's nothing you can do if you've exhausted all the resources. And just real quick for the listeners as well that are listening to this, if you're in this state right now, I'm going to put, again, a free plug for myself. We'll plug Robbie here in a second, but I'm going to put a free plug for myself. But it's honestly for you. If you want this ebook for free, just send me a message or comment below and just write ebook, and I will send it to you for free. It's on Amazon right now, but I will send it to you for free. Okay. So even if you're thinking about possibly doing it, or you're going through the divorce process, DM me ebook, write a comment, ebook, and I'll send it to you. So that being said, Robbie, there's something that I wanted to go back to that you said earlier, and you actually said several different things. You were talking about how your feelings change, about how you're going to get through it, how even when it looks the darkest, you're going to, and even when you don't want to talk, you're depressed. There's a concept called stacking. I'm not sure if you've heard that concept before, but you actually referenced it earlier. And the concept is, if I have an emotion here, we as humans will often then stack another negative emotion on top of it. So if I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling angry because of something that just happened, let's say that I'm not getting as much time with my kids, I'm feeling sad about that. Well, then it goes to, well, it's probably because I was a shitty husband. And then that goes to, which then actually makes me a shitty dad, which then goes to, well, yeah, and then that's why I'm not really doing well in my business, which then goes to the next time I perform on stage, I'm really not going to, do very well, right? And it just stacks on top of each other until you get this massive depression, or just, I don't even know how you function, man. Like when I was going through this stuff, I couldn't function running my businesses and everything else, man. I was so maxed out with my divorce. It was so incredibly difficult just to do enough business to keep food on the table during that time of my life. So I relate to you, brother. What do you say to men or women, for that matter, that are in that state? They just feel like things are getting stacked on top of each other. Going back to the fact that emotions change, you can get through this. But what would you say to them that are just like, I just don't see the light at the end of the tunnel?
Daily practices is super important. Writing things down is really important. If you can start a journal or something like that, just to get your thoughts onto paper is really key. I think having some frameworks in your life that are healthy are really key. You can't be right mentally if you're not right physically and spiritually and emotionally. So you gotta, there's a few things that you can do, like exercise is definitely key. I would say like just taking care of your body helps take care of your mind. So, and then reading books, read your ebook, read some sort of information either on that topic or on something else about bettering yourself and about, getting out of a dark place. There's tons of literature out there that can help assist you when you're going through a hard time, and music as well. You know what I mean? I'm big into music, and I always tell people when they're going through hard times, like put on some Bob Marley, like put on some music that just has a good vibration to it. And it's hard to be upset and down when you're listening to Don't Worry, Be Happy. You know what I mean? Like you instantly are just like, yeah, actually, you know what? Maybe things aren't that bad. Maybe I'm just looking at it in a wrong way. So
and on that note too, I'm sure you would agree with this, that Rob, music can definitely have the opposite effect, right? I mean, if I'm in a mood and I'm stacking emotions on top of each other and I want to be sad because I just, my relationship just ended. Oh man, there's a plethora of music to listen to reconfirm my bias that I'm sad and that my life is over because my relationship just ended. So be really careful. Like music has at least for me, and I'm sure that this is true for a lot of people, music is really powerful for me. So if a song comes on, it can very instantly even change my mood, increase my mood one way or another. So, very, very powerful, right? Like you said several things like exercise and music together often helps me. You change your state, you change your physiology, you add some upbeat music, and all of a sudden I'm like, man, I'm happy now. Like I was depressed 2 seconds ago, but now I'm like dancing around to Don't Worry, Be Happy. And it's amazing.
Yeah, it's key. Yeah, I think you made a good point there. Content that you consume of all types can really affect you. So yeah, if you're listening to sad music, it can put you in a sad state, but also just like television shows, movies that you watch. And the biggest thing is your phone. The way that the algorithm works, the more content that you watch, it will just keep feeding you more content that's like that. It's similar to the way that our brain works. So if you start watching reels that are about people going through sad situations and being depressed about it and stuff, it's just going to feed you more of that stuff.
Absolutely, brother.
And the same thing with the opposite of that. If you're following people and, consuming content that's positive and uplifting, it's just going to feed you more of that as well. Comedy as well is a key too. Like I'm big into stand-up comedy. So, the power of laughter is it's magic, it's medicine. So if you are feeling down and you're sad, like if you watch a good comedy special and you can, or get around some people and just joke and have laughs and stuff, like that can be so powerful for your mind state to get out of a dark place or out of a dark rut. Surrounding yourself with good people is key. And then back on the healthy tip, just I want to mention like eating healthy as well. It's one of the things that, is hard to do when you're in that kind of more a depressed state and you just don't want to do anything. It's hard to even cook for yourself or whatever, but the process of cooking or the process of eating food that's good for you, that's feeding your physical body, you really got to focus on what you're putting into yourself. So you're not sitting there eating like chips and popcorn and drinking pop and like, knocking back 6 coffees in a day or something like that. You got to recognize that, the healthier the food that you eat, the healthier your mind actually becomes, and taking multivitamins and all sorts of things that can help enhance your brain and your body is so key, I think. So yeah, those are just a few things that I would say. And yeah, creating some structure in your day. So you wake up and you do this or you do that. Give yourself tasks to do and stick to them as much as you possibly can. Obviously, you might slip here and there when you're having an emotional day, but creating some structure in your life and then, sticking to the commitments and obligations that you've made to other people in your business or personal life. If you've made plans to meet up with a friend or do something or go out somewhere, like stick to it. Don't be like, oh, I'm not feeling good today, so I'm just going to stay at home. Like, stick to the commitments that you make. I think it's really important to be impeccable with your word. It's one of the 4 agreements with that book by Don Miguel Ruiz. If you haven't read it, I'd highly suggest it. And then, I'd say, reading stuff about intimacy and about relationships, because another thing that I find can happen when you have a big breakup is you start going into this mindset of, well, if I wasn't good for that person, am I going to be good for anybody? Am I ever going to be able to find true love again? Am I ever going to have somebody who loves me for who I am? And I think it's important to, give yourself the time and space to mourn and grieve the relationship and the loss of it, but also to get back on that horse and go out and meet people of the opposite sex or of the same sex, if that's what you're into, like to meet other significant others that you could potentially have in your life and see where that could go and where that could take you. And just having conversations with other people can fill your cup up in that feeling of lack that you experience when you get out of a long relationship, and you're just like, you have these thoughts of, am I even going to be loved again? Am I going to be able to get into a relationship again? Am I broken or damaged goods or whatever, as they say? I think it's important to get back into the dating space and at least give yourself the opportunity to meet other people and see where that takes you. So
for sure,
I think however long that takes you for you to do, but I think it's important.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff, man. Thank you for all that. And I just want to reiterate a couple things for the listeners and the viewers. The 4 Agreements book is a great one. Go ahead and check the show notes. I'll put a link to that because I think that I agree with you. That's a great book to read if you haven't read that yet already. And you also mentioned a lot of just books and content on relationships, etc. If you guys go to our website, thederelict.biz/resources, I'll put that in the show notes as well. There is a whole section on relationships and books that are recommended. Again, this is not, I don't get anything for doing this. This is just books, resources for you guys. So go check that out as well. And, you mentioned several things too that I want to come back to, and a few things that I've learned in my life when it comes to media. So here's a good old man phrase for you. My dad used to say this to me all the time growing up: garbage in, garbage out. And as a kid, I just kind of fluffed it off. I'm like, yeah, whatever, Dad. But now, the older I get, the more I realize how true that statement is. The more I consume shit, whether it is either bad food for my body, or whether it's bad media, bad TV shows, whatever, the more it affects my emotions in a negative way, for sure. You were mentioning things like comedy. Like, one of the things that I've found that comedy is really, really helpful for me. I love making jokes. You wouldn't know from an episode like this because we're pretty serious about this topic, but I love making jokes. I love making people laugh. I love getting laughter. I love going to comedy shows. I love all of that. And I also need to be really aware, even with that content where I go, like if I'm in a down space because I just got done with a relationship, a lot of sitcoms can be dangerous because a lot of sitcoms kind of show relationships ending like it's no big deal, like no one had any sort of emotion, or they just blow it off, or they have these different ideas about relationship transitions that really aren't helpful for me. You know, if I'm watching this, I'm like, there's some guy that's just going out and sleeping with every single woman that he possibly could sleep with. And that goes against my morals and my beliefs and what I actually think is right for me, then sometimes it's not a good thing for me to watch, right? And even more insidious, like you said, is social media. Here's the good thing, you guys. I hear all this talk about social media and how it knows us and there's no privacy and it controls our thoughts and it controls what we believe, etc. Okay, to a degree, but you actually can control social media. So to your point, Robbie, you can go right now. Everybody do this that's listening. Go on your Instagram feed or whatever your social media of choice is. Go on your feed and just search for the things that you want to see. In other words, if you want to see, like basically the podcast entire Instagram feed is about strong men growing into their masculinity, men dealing with difficult things in their life and going through it, success. Like that's all that shows up in my feed all day long. So honestly, when I'm feeling down and I'm not feeling like I'm doing a good job and I feel like I'm having limiting mindsets, one of the healthiest places for me to go, which is going to shock most people, one of the healthiest places for me to go is Instagram and to check my feed in Instagram, because I surround myself with, we're connected on Instagram. I connect with myself with other entrepreneurs that are trying to better themselves, that are going through this process for strong quotes that aren't blaming others. They're not being the victim, etc. And that, you know, honestly was within the last couple of years. Before that, it was like, here's how much sad my life is. And here's how to like get women or whatever, right? All this stuff that wasn't feeding my brain. And now Instagram is actually a healthy place for me to go, because I know that when I go there, all I'm going to see is healthy messaging. So if you're seeing non-healthy messaging or messaging that's not helping you, it goes for you too, Robbie. Go back into your feed and change it, man, because we control it. Social media does not control us. You got to control it. Otherwise, it will run rampant. It'll go crazy.
Yeah.
It'll go absolutely crazy.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize that there's like a way, like if you see something, you can generally, I think there's like the 3 dots in the right hand corner, you can click it and there's a section where it says, do you want to see more of this content or less of this content or something like that? And you can literally go through all of the posts that pop up in your feed, and just like the ones that aren't serving you, you can just say, I want less of this. And the ones that are serving you, you can say, I want more of that. And you slowly start to build your own content.
Absolutely. And you can do the same thing too, just as a side note, with ads also, because you're going to get ads no matter what. Ads are just a part of life right now. But so you can't say this doesn't apply to me or it's irrelevant on every single ad, because then Instagram is going to have no idea where to send you. So just find the ones, even if you don't like the ad, if it's like the positive, uplifting message that you want in your life, or at least it's going in that direction, say that you like the ad, because then guess what? More ads are going to pop up like that. So now all of a sudden your entire feed is coming, like you said, Robbie, your entire feed is coming down in a way that I want my mindset to be. All the ads are in my mindset. If I go search or look at reels, it's all going to be in my mindset. Man, this really transformed my life when I realized that I could actually control social media to be the type of social media I want it to be, to remove the negativity, to remove the limiting mindsets, to remove the victim mentality and all that sort of stuff from my social media, and actually have it be a healthy space, so that when I go on there, I'm not feeling worse about myself. I'm feeling better about myself. I don't think a lot of people realize you can set up social media that way.
Yeah. A lot of people just, like you were saying, fall victim, or just, woe is me, and like, oh, I'm in a bad space and it's just going to keep being there. But yeah, that's one of the main messages that I want to touch on in this, is just, letting people know that they have the power. And that's one of the ways that they can use that power, is like controlling their environment, controlling their thoughts. And that's going to literally change your reality. Your perception of things dictates, what the turnout is and what the outcome is. There's tons of social experiments and scientific experiments to correlate that actually has truth and significance to it, in like what we think and how we see things, how it actually affects the world, which is why it's so important to write down your goals, to write down the things that you want to have created in your life, And another practice that I got put onto, which I forget which book it was that I read that gave me this trick or tactic, was to write down the type of person that I want to attract into my life, the next big partner that I want to have and to build with in life, to really write down what that person is going to look like from the personality traits to how they were raised, their upbringing, what kind of background they have, what are their goals and aspirations, the physical attributes and all that kind of stuff. But like getting deeper into like really creating this person, and then also going into another section after that, which is what kind of person do I need to be to call that person into my life? What kind of person, how do I need to show up in my life so that I attract that same kind of person that's on that same vibration? Everybody's on vibrations, and it's all how we align with somebody is the energy that we're putting out into the world is what we're going to receive back. So, looking at all the things that I want in a partner and saying, do I have those qualities? Am I, honest? Do I have integrity? Am I somebody that I can rely on, that other people can rely on? Do I show up when I say I'm going to show up? Am I taking care of myself? All of these things that I want my partner to do, I need to be that for myself too. So writing down all of those things and then looking back at it, sticking to it and saying, okay, like this is what I need to work on. These are my strengths. These are my weaknesses. How can I better myself to, get better at the things that I'm not good at? And how can I double down on the things that I'm really good at it? And just like, that's how you create in your life what you want to see in your world, and also the kind of people that you want to attract into your life.
Absolutely, brother. That's so great. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because actually earlier in the conversation, I wrote in my notes right here, I just wrote, what are you looking for in your next relationship, which we're going to get to in a second here. And I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's a practice that I've done as well. I'm currently a single man that is open to dating. And when you have an ideal partner written down and you have a really clear vision of who that person is, dating actually becomes, for me, more fun, more open, more expectations, less concern about what is going to happen on the date, because I have such a clear vision of who I want to be with next, that when I go on a date, it's very clear very quickly for me, at least clearer than it ever has been in my life, that either this person might fit this or they don't. Like right away. I mean, honestly, usually you can tell within a few minutes, frankly. You can definitely tell within one date, especially if you have any sort of conversation about anything whatsoever. You can just already see, at least, again, this is the place I'm at. Like, I will literally read it before going on the date, and I'll vision what this person looks like. And I'll think, okay, this is the type of person, this is the type of partner, etc., that I want to be. And maybe a lot of people listening or watching this think that it's all about physical looks and everything else. It's really very little about that for me. It's more about, these are the attributes, these are the things that I want them to be able to do, which are important to me in my healing journey. And I want them to be the same. So I can tell very quickly, like, are those things important to them or are they not important to them? And frankly, if they're not important to them, then why would we go on another date? But going back to what you said earlier too, which I thought was really, really key. And that is, I think one of the things that you said that I just want to reiterate for anybody listening that maybe has gone through a recent breakup or going through a breakup, is that when you're thinking that you're ready to get back out there, just realize, don't put a lot of pressure on yourself when you're doing that. And like you were saying, Robbie, just be open to meeting people. Mm-hmm. Not everything has to be this intense, like, oh my goodness, are we going to be partners right now? Like, it doesn't, just go have a conversation with somebody. I mean, it could be as simple as, I'm feeling not confident. I don't know if I'm ready to date again. I just want to strike up conversations. Smiling at the barista and having a conversation with them with no intent, right? Like, I'm not asking for their phone number or anything else. I just want to lighten their day. Going into a coffee shop, doing some work, seeing somebody else that's alone that seems open to having a conversation, and just going and saying hi to them. I mean, we've lost a lot of that, I think, in our society with social media and everything else. But it's very, very simple. People respond, from my experience, really, really well when you go up and you just bring good energy to them, no matter who they are. It doesn't even matter if they have bad energy and you can tell it right away, great, go on to somebody else. You don't have to spend a lot of time there. But for me, what's been really helpful is just trying to bring my best self into the room, trying to bring my best energy into the room, and then just going and connecting. It's like you said, just go meet others. Just go have those. You were talking about it earlier when you were talking about keeping your commitments to people as well, right? Just have fun with it, you guys. Like, I don't know who needs to hear this, but I need to hear it. So I'm telling myself this. Just go have fun with it. As of this recording, Robbie, the last date I went on was last night. So pretty recently.
Nice.
And when I went on a date with that woman who wanted to go on a date with me, she seemed interesting. She seemed like she had a good personality, etc. But I already kind of had the feeling, I was like, yeah, I don't think this is like ideal partner material. But I was like, you know what? Why would I not go on the date? So I literally I had this conversation with myself, because I could either sit at home and work, because I have so much work to do right now, which would be fine. Or I could go out and experience another human being, have a good conversation, and connect, irregardless of whether we're going to become partners or not. And frankly, we had a really engaging conversation. I really enjoyed meeting her. I already know that she's not ideal partner for me. I mean, there's just several reasons why. However, I could see her being a good friend. I could see her being somebody that I actually want to connect with. I had an engaging conversation, and it was good. And like, that's okay, right? Like, not everybody has to be the one that you meet with. Just go connect with people. And it's so easy for us just to, like you were saying earlier, it's just so easy for us just to hide behind our screens. I mean, we're behind screens right now. I wish we weren't. I wish we were in person, because there's just a certain energy there. It's so easy for us to hide behind screens and watch this crafted content that social media is giving us based on our preferences, and to think that that's reality. Instead of my experience last night, where I went to a bar, she wanted to watch this football game. I don't even drink, so I don't even usually like going to bars. But I went to this bar with her. She was watching a football game. I also don't like football. So there's like 2 reasons already for me not to go. But I just decided, hey, go have a conversation. So we're sitting at this table, watched a little bit of football, ending up having an engaging conversation. Neither one of us are on our phone, and we're just engaged. And it was lovely. It doesn't have to be more than that.
No, that's crucial. Yeah, and I think it's just all about the reps too. It's like you got to put in the reps if you want to meet somebody and have an engaging conversation, and be good at that, having good conversations and being able to be authentic and be real and share your thoughts and feelings and express who you are is a practice thing. It's not something that you can just, figure out overnight. And the more that you do it, the better that you get at it, just like anything else. So, and the more time that you take off from doing that, the harder it is to get the ball rolling again and to get back on the horse, as they say. So just making sure that you go out there and take those opportunities and, say no when you need to, but, say yes as well as much as you can, to be able to put yourself in that experience and get better at meeting other people and how to communicate and how to ask, introspective questions and go deep and peel back the layers of the onion in that person, so that you can get to know them better and figure out what works and what doesn't work in that situation. It all comes through practice. So just getting out there and meeting more people, and like you said, make it fun, make it a cool experience. Go and do something that you wouldn't otherwise do. That's one of the best and most fun things about dating and meeting other people, is like, there's so many things in my life that I probably wouldn't have done by myself, but because I've got somebody else to enjoy it with, I'm like, let's go do this experience or that experience, or go, check this thing out that I've never seen before, and you might like it too. And then you end up, discovering stuff about yourself and about the world and places to travel, to visit, to see, that you wouldn't otherwise go and do and check out if you were just going to do it by yourself. So I think that in itself helps you on the happiness factor, and just on experiencing life and being more cultured, or just getting to know yourself better and what you like and what you don't like. is going out and experiencing things. So meeting people gives you that ability to do that, and you can start dreaming and thinking like, what's a cool date idea? Like, what would be fun to do, or what would wow another person to be like, wow, this was like a pretty cool date. You know what I mean? Something out of the ordinary. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And to touch on that real quick as well, is that, I really like playing pool, billiards.
Okay.
And I used to play it 20 years ago, making myself sound old, but I used to play it a lot 20 years ago. Basically haven't played it for 20 years and then started again, really, frankly, 3-4 months ago, maybe something like that. And these last couple weeks, I think I've been on like 5 dates or something in the last couple weeks. And all like 3 of those, I think, I invited them to come play pool with me. And these are not women that play pool. I just was like, hey, look, I'm going to go play pool anyway. You want to come join me? And all 3 of them were like, sure. I don't really know how to play pool, etc., but I'm open to it. And it was a fun experience, and they got to try something new. And I just got to invite them into a part of my life that I enjoy doing. So frankly, that was the other thing that I was thinking. I was like, look, even if this date bombs just selfishly, I get to go play pool with somebody who seems like a cool person. And then even if we never see each other again, okay, great. Like, I would have just been out playing pool by myself or with somebody else anyway. So why not just invite somebody else into experiences that you enjoy, to your point too. That's absolutely true. And I want to offer one other free resource for the listeners and viewers as well. So again, comment or DM me the word partner, and I'm happy to send you. We have something that we use with our coaching clients that helps you vision what your ideal partner looks like, and also helps you figure out what you need to do for yourself, like you were mentioning earlier, Robbie, to find that ideal partner. So again, no strings attached here, just DM or comment the word partner, and I'm happy to send that to you. Because for me, when I'm dating, I spent the majority of my life dating was without a clear vision of who I was looking for. It was just like, oh, she's hot. Oh, she's fun. Oh, she's funny. I'll date them. But here I am, a 40-year-old single man. Clearly it hasn't worked super well for me. So it's really only in the last couple of years where I'm like, look, I have to have a clear vision of this person. Because if I don't have a clear vision of this person, then I'm going to attract whatever I'm putting out. And if I'm probably putting out something different than the vision I actually have. So that's really key. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, man. Thank you so much. So maybe as we wrap up here, I just want to know, you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, you're a musician, you host all these events, 200 to 300 a year, man. That's a lot of events, right? So kudos to you for doing all that. I just don't even understand how you kept all that together going through your divorce, or even this recently after your divorce. And I can understand why you coach men through that. So do you want to make a little plug for that and talk about how you coach men through that? Like, who are you looking for in that process that you could help?
Yeah, I mean, men and women, anybody who's an entrepreneur, an artist that's trying to better their lives and trying to, get out there a little bit more and expose their craft and their artistry to the world. I mean, for myself, like, bury myself in my work, which could be to a fault in some respects. And I definitely did that this year going through the divorce. I spent a lot of time working on my business, and we doubled our business in a year,
Wow.
which was pretty incredible. We did so many events this year, and just like, we're really, really crushing it, and part of it had to do with the fact that I had a little bit more time to put into the business. I wasn't focused on my relationship. I was, those date nights that I would set aside for myself and my partner were now just grind nights where I just sat in front of my computer and worked on things, either for myself as an artist writing songs or
I get that.
shows and events and stuff. So I definitely doubled down on my business this year more than I ever have. And it helped for sure the growth of everything, and made some new key hires and did a lot of stuff with myself, entrepreneur on the entrepreneur side that just transformed everything for me. But then there was also times where I was like, I can't just focus on work. I have to also focus on myself and like meeting new people and like getting into dating and all that kind of stuff too. So a little bit of both, but I would say coaching people on, how how to stay consistent is a key thing. A lot of people, like, I see this a lot from artists where they like make a post and they're like, oh, like, here, I'm making some more music now. Check out my new song that's going to come out. Sorry, life got in the way. I haven't been posting too much. And like the life got in the way statement is like so prevalent, especially in the music industry. I find like there's so many people that just allow situations in their life, whether it's a death of a family member, situations with friends, relationships with significant others, career choices, or, you know, changes in jobs and where they're going. If they're moving from one spot to another spot, they just allow life to get in the way from the creative endeavors that they pursue. And I think it's so important to hone in on the creative side and hone in on the part of you that lights you up the most, because when life gets in the way, most of the time that like life stuff is not that exciting or fun. And it's usually stuff that's like dragging us down and bringing us down. And the music that we make and the creative outlets that we have and our expressions through our business and our entrepreneurial side is all stuff that lifts us up generally and makes us feel better. And like, yes, we're serving, we're actually doing what we're here on earth to do. We're not here on this earth to, you know, dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure this thing is checked off and that thing's checked off, or, you know, have disputes with people. It's about serving the world, and it's about sharing our gifts with the world. So my biggest thing in coaching people and teaching them how to do this is to hone in on those things that they're passionate about and focus on them. If you like playing guitar, do it every day. Don't do it just when like you have the time for it or you want to, you know, find time for it. You have to make time for these things and make time for getting better at the things that could potentially change your life. If you really focus on the passions that you have, you can turn them into long-lasting businesses that are very fruitful for you and help so many other people, and can put, you know, give jobs to people and help them on their career path and their trajectory as well, and empower them to do so just by you sharing your gifts and being true to yourself and what you're here for. So yeah, I just want to encourage everybody listening, if you have passions and you have things that are, you know, on more of your creative side, or things that you are holding back inside yourself because you're letting other things get in the way of it, to, you know, evaluate your time and spend more time on the things that light you up and the things that make you feel good about yourself, whether that's writing music or writing a book or, you know, speaking to people and sharing your gifts that way. Like, however that you can get out there and do the thing that lights you up the most. I think that we need to really, as human beings as a whole, focus on that more. And I think with the advent of AI and robotics and all this stuff that's coming through the pipeline for the next 10, 20 years of our life, with automation and getting into a place where there's self-driving cars and all these different things that are going to, you know, start taking over some of the mundane stuff that we do on a daily basis, we can start to hone in more on the things that light us up more, and the gifts that we have and the creative side, and get better at those things so that we can share our gifts with the world.
Robbie, thank you so much, man. Your passion is inspirational. It really is. I mean, for somebody also that lived a lot of my life without really feeling like I was very creative and just not letting my creative juices out, so to speak, it's really inspiring to talk to somebody like you that even through difficulty, turmoil, I'm sure you've had, you know, other difficulties with business and everything else that we didn't even touch on today, that you could just be you're so obviously so passionate about getting people and their creative energy out there. So if somebody wants to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do it?
I would say Instagram's a great way. I am Robbie G on Instagram, ROBBIEG. My socials are everywhere, Facebook as well. Go to my website, RobbieGHipHop.com, and you can check out some of my music and merch and stuff like that. I've also wrote a book called Rapper's Guide to an Enlightened Mind, which is kind of a self-help book for anybody going through hard times and trying to lift them out of it, and sharing my story and, you know, some of the trials and tribulations that I've been through. And I'm working on my second book right now. Yeah. And I would say, yeah, just check out the content. If it resonates with you and you feel good about it, or you like the music, continue to go down the rabbit hole. I've got, you know, 100 music videos out, 10 plus albums, lots of songs to go through. And yeah, if you like it, check it out. And if I'm in your area, come and see me at a show and meet me in person. I always feel that that's the best place to experience music is the live aspect of it. So yeah, that's where I would say go find me wherever awesome, you find your music.
I love that. That's awesome. Thank you so much. And again, for listeners, viewers, we're going to put in the resources. I'm going to put Robbie's Instagram on there, his website, his book. So go check those out and support this amazing man and reach out to him. I mean, his passion comes across here. We actually met through a group that we were a part of where we didn't know each other, and we reached out through Instagram and we had a good conversation. And now we had a great conversation today. So man, thank you so much just for honoring me with your presence. I mean, you're a highly successful guy. You have a lot of good things going for you, and you still took the time to be on the podcast today to share your story. And you're honest and vulnerable and really open about it, which, you know, it's hard to do, right? I mean, you're doing it with pretty much a complete stranger for viewers that are pretty much complete strangers. So just, man, I appreciate it. I appreciate you very much. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for allowing me the time and space to be able to share my message. And yeah, to the listeners, have hope, have faith, and keep on going and try to stay happy and healthy and positive and in a good mind state. This life is a magical place for us to just play in and enjoy. So be the best version of yourself that you can be and have fun with this life. We're here for a short amount of time, and we got to make the most of it while we're here. So live, laugh, love, and yeah, have fun.
I appreciate that, man. And for everybody listening, if you liked what Robbie had to say today, go hit the like button. Even if you're not on YouTube, go get on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe. Get this content in your box. More importantly as well, share this with somebody. If you heard Robbie's story today and you're like, oh man, I got a friend kind of going through some of that stuff, share this with them. We want to be a hope and an inspiration. Clearly Robbie does as well. That's why we run the podcast also. But clearly Robbie and other guests that we have do as well. So that's the way to get the message out. Like, subscribe, and share. So thank you all so much. Thank you again, Robbie. Really appreciate it, man. It was a great conversation. I feel very honored to have you on here. Thank you so much. So until next time, we'll see you later, you derelicts.